Terrified. Directed by Demian Rugna and released in 2017, this Argentinian horror film doesn't waste time building slow tension. From the very first scene, Terrified makes you feel something awful is always seconds away. Strange events start spreading across a small neighborhood in Buenos Aires. People hear voices in the walls, objects move on their own, and one man swears something unseen is living under the bed. When the police get involved, they call in a doctor who studies paranormal phenomena. She brings a colleague, and together with a retired officer, they set up surveillance equipment in several homes. What they record is beyond anything they've seen before. Cameras capture impossible movements, shadows that shouldn't exist, and sounds that suggest multiple presences rather than one. In one of the most disturbing moments, a dead child's body appears seated at the kitchen table, days after his funeral, completely motionless, but somehow aware. Each investigator tries to rationalize what's happening, but fear starts to take over. The more they search for answers, the more it feels like the entire neighborhood has been infected by something ancient and malevolent. By the end, they realize it can't be contained. The haunting spreads further, and there's no closure, no exorcism, no peace. The film ends as it began, quietly, with the sense that something unseen is still watching, waiting for its next victim. Belzebuth. Released in 2017 and directed by Emilio Portes, Belzebuth blends crime drama with religious horror in a way that feels gritty and grounded. The story centers on Emmanuel Ritter, played by Joaquin Cosio, a police detective still broken by the loss of his newborn son. He's drawn into a horrifying investigation when a school shooting leaves dozens of children dead. The event seems senseless, but it's only the beginning. Soon, similar massacres occur across Mexico, each one stranger than the last. Ritter notices symbols and patterns that shouldn't mean anything, but they line up too perfectly. That's when he crosses paths with Father Canetti, played by Tobin Bell, a former priest who insists that what's happening isn't random. It's part of an ancient plan. According to Canetti, these killings are orchestrated by a demon preparing for a war between heaven and hell. Ritter doesn't want to believe it. He's a man of logic, of evidence, but when his own past starts connecting to the pattern, he's forced to confront the possibility that faith and evil are far closer than he ever imagined. By the final scenes, Ritter faces the entity behind everything, realizing that it's been tied to him from the start. There's no easy victory, no clear resolution. Belzebuth ends with the uneasy truth that grief itself can open doors better left shut, and once that door opens, it doesn't close again. Deadstream. Directed by Joseph and Vanessa Winter and released in 2022, Deadstream plays like a horror film built entirely out of live stream chaos. Sean Ruddy, a disgraced content creator, is desperate to win back his audience after a public scandal tanked his career. His plan for a comeback is simple but reckless. Lock himself overnight in Death Manor, a supposedly haunted mansion, and broadcast every second live for his followers. At first, it's exactly what you'd expect. He's cocky, throwing jokes at the camera, pretending every sound is paranormal. The chat trolls him, people donate money for dares, and it's pure internet spectacle. But the tone shifts quickly. A door slams upstairs when he's standing still. One of his cameras gets knocked over, and footsteps echo through the house when he's alone. The comments turn from laughing emojis to warnings. Things get worse when a strange woman named Chrissy shows up midstream, claiming to be a fan. She knows the house too well, and when she vanishes, Sean's show turns into something no one can look away from. Every attempt to escape becomes content for thousands still watching live. In the end, Sean's feed keeps running long after he's gone. No jump scare, no explanation, just silence and a camera staring at nothing. Deadstream takes the thrill of viral fame and turns it into a punishment, showing how far people go when the audience never blinks. Deadtectives. Tony West's Deadtectives, released in 2018, takes aim at fake ghost hunters and gives them the nightmare they deserve. The setup sounds like a comedy show, a crew of paranormal investigators, all ego and special effects, filming for TV in an allegedly cursed mansion in Mexico. They've built a business on jump scares and bad acting. You can practically smell the fake fog. But this place isn't playing along. From the moment they step inside, something feels off, and it's not the props. A shadow passes behind one of them before they've even started rolling. Someone hears a whisper when no one's talking. Their crew skeptic laughs it off until a door slams shut hard enough to shake the whole set. Halfway through, the fun stops. The ghosts here don't care about ratings. They're not here to be recorded. They're here to punish. The crew's tricks stop working, their confidence drains away, and panic takes over. One by one, they learn what a real haunting feels like. And by the end, the survivors crawl out broken, carrying more proof than they ever wanted. The cameras kept rolling the whole time, but no one's left to upload the footage. The irony lands perfectly. The one time they caught real ghosts on tape, there's no audience waiting to watch. Death Valley. Matthew Nienaber's Death Valley, released in 2021, starts like a standard military mission and quickly slides into something much stranger. A small team of mercenaries is sent to extract a trapped scientist from a sealed Cold War bunker. They're confident, efficient, and ready for anything, or at least they think they are. The deeper they move underground, the less sense anything makes. Walls sweat condensation, metal groans under pressure, and the air carries a faint hum that doesn't stop. Then they find the woman they came for, terrified, shaken, and warning them to turn back. The bunker wasn't holding her prisoner, it was keeping something else contained. Moments later, that containment fails. The creature that appears isn't a soldier, or even human. It's a mutation of something made in those laboratories decades ago, something that was meant to be erased from history. The team opens fire, but the darkness swallows sound faster than bullets. The film leans on tight corridors, flicking lights, and heavy breathing, every inch designed to feel suffocating. Radios break, panic spreads. One by one, the mercenaries vanish into the same shadows they disturbed. When the last survivor reaches the surface, there's no victory speech, no dramatic music. He's covered in frost, limping through an empty forest as dawn breaks behind him. The bunker door seals again, silent and unmarked, like nothing ever happened. Glorious. Glorious came out in 2022, directed by Rebecca McKendry, and it's one of those horror films that sound ridiculous on paper but somehow work perfectly. It starts with Wes, a guy on the edge of a breakdown after a bad breakup. He pulls into a grimy rest stop somewhere in the middle of nowhere, throws up, burns some photos, and walks into the bathroom to clean up. Then the door locks behind him. From the next stall, a voice starts talking. Calm, deep, almost kind. At first, it's funny. Wes thinks someone's messing with him. Then the voice says it isn't a person at all. It's something ancient, a god, or close enough to one that arguing feels useless. The entire movie takes place in that restroom, and it shouldn't work, but it does. The tension builds from the dialogue alone. Every sentence drags Wes deeper into whatever this thing wants from him. It talks about sacrifice, guilt, cosmic responsibility, the kind of stuff no one wants to hear when they're hungover. Eventually, Wes figures out that the voice is telling the truth. The fate of everything, literally everything, depends on what he does next. The camera doesn't show what happens when he decides, just blood, light, and silence. When it's over, the bathroom's empty again. The stall door creaks open, nothing left but echo. Gwen. Released in 2018 and directed by William McGregor, Gwen tells a slow, bleak story set in the misty hills of 19th century Wales. It follows a young girl named Gwen who lives with her mother and younger sister on a small, isolated farm. Her father's gone, the nearby quarry is expanding, and the world around them feels like it's closing in. From the start, everything feels wrong. The livestock die overnight, the neighbors keep their distance, and their mother grows increasingly erratic. Gwen tries to keep their home together, but every small comfort, food, warmth, light, starts slipping away. There's no jump scares, no ghosts. The horror comes from how powerless they are against poverty and superstition. As pressure builds, the village turns hostile. People whisper that the family is cursed, and even the local preacher stops visiting. Gwen's mother collapses under the weight of illness and fear, leaving her daughter to face the world alone. The industrial smoke from the mines creep closer with every scene until it feels like it's swallowing the landscape. By the end, Gwen's house burns, her family's gone, and she's left standing in the ashes, staring at a future she doesn't understand. The film closes quietly, showing that sometimes horror isn't about monsters or death. It's about losing everything familiar and realizing no one is coming to save you. Hellbender. Released in 2021 and directed by John Adams, Zelda Adams, and Toby Poser, Hellbender is a low-budget indie horror film that uses a mother-daughter story to explore isolation, power, and what happens when curiosity goes too far. It centers on Izzy, a teenager who lives deep in the woods with her mother. They're close, maybe too close, and they spend their days playing music and keeping to themselves. Izzy isn't allowed near other people, and she doesn't really know why. Her mother tells her she's sick, that contact could hurt her, but the truth has nothing to do with illness. When Izzy sneaks away one afternoon and meets another girl, something starts to change. A small taste of blood awakens something ancient in her, something that her mother has been hiding for years. The two of them aren't human in the way they thought. They're part witch, part predator, creatures who draw power from death. The movie builds slowly, using its quiet setting to make every strange moment feel personal. There's no big monster reveal, just the realization that Izzy is becoming more powerful than her mother, and neither of them can stop it. By the end, the roles have reversed completely. Izzy embraces what she is, while her mother watches the balance of control slip away, and in the end, we are left pondering on what happens when protection turns into fear, and when family becomes the first thing you outgrow. Directed by Dominic Hartle, Party Hard Die Young came out in 2018 and feels like a classic slasher wrapped in glossy Euro trip energy. A group of freshly graduated friends heads to an island in Croatia for one last wild summer festival. Loud music, bright lights, and no parents in sight. But the fun turns sour fast when people start disappearing, and the party grounds become a maze of panic and suspicion. The film borrows the setup of American teen slashers, but gives it a European flavor. The crowd scenes look real, full of sweat and noise, while the killings happen in moments that feel almost too quiet. It's not a movie that hides what it is, it simply leans into the idea that young people trapped in celebration can miss the danger right in front of them. Julia, the main character, starts noticing clues about who the killer might be, but no one believes her until it's too late. Every laugh turns into a scream, every flashing light hides something moving closer. The tension of the film comes from watching someone realize the party's over long before the music stops. By the final act, Julia is fighting to make it off the island alive. In all, Party Hard Die Young works best as a cautionary tale about trust and distraction, how the loudest nights can hide the darkest truths. Moloch. Released in 2022 and directed by Nico Vandenbrink, Moloch is a Dutch folk horror story that starts quietly and grows heavier the longer you stay with it. The film follows Beatrix, a woman living with her parents and daughter beside an isolated peat bog in the Netherlands. One night, a man bursts into their home from the fog and dies without saying a word. From that moment, things stop feeling safe. Soon, archaeologists nearby uncover bodies buried in the bog. Perfectly preserved women with terrified faces. They call them sacrifices, but Beatrix starts wondering why they all look so familiar. Strange whispers follow her through the house. Doors move, lights flicker, and she begins to dream about a figure watching from the waterline. Halfway through, the story shifts from mystery to something more personal. Beatrix learns that every few generations, women in her family die violently, and that the deaths follow a pattern. The name Moloch keeps appearing in old records, tied to rituals demanding the blood of a firstborn. When Beatrix finally confronts the truth, it's not about superstition anymore. She's part of the curse, the next link in a cycle that never ended. The final shot leaves her frozen in realization as the bog settles back into silence. Satan's Slaves. Directed by Joko Anwar and released in 2017, Satan's Slaves reimagines the 1980 Indonesian classic with sharper storytelling and unsettling atmosphere. It follows Rini, the eldest daughter in a struggling family living on the outskirts of Jakarta. Her mother, a former singer, has been bedridden for years with a strange illness that leaves her frail and nearly voiceless. When she dies, the family thinks their suffering is over, but that night, the bell from her bedroom rings, the one she used to call for help, and someone starts moving through the house. From there, the film unfolds as a slow descent into horror. Rini and her brothers hear whispers, see shadows, and notice their mother's portrait staring back at them differently each day. The local cleric warns them about a curse tied to their bloodline, suggesting their mother once made a deal with dark forces for fame and fortune. Anwar's directing leans on mood rather than cheap scares. The rural setting feels cold and timeless, the kind of place where the dead might easily walk among the living. Each sound, a creaking door, a faint hum, lands like a warning. As the story unravels, Rini learns her family was promised to a satanic cult that's now come to collect its debt. In the final scenes, graves open, figures rise, and the truth becomes impossible to escape. Satan's Slaves ends where it began, with a family bound together by love, fear, and something much older than both. It's a story about inheritance, not of wealth, but of sin. Prevenge. Written, directed by, and starring Alice Lowe, Prevenge was released in 2016 and stands out for being filmed while Lowe herself was pregnant. The movie follows Ruth, a grieving widow who believes her unborn baby is speaking to her and telling her to kill. It's a dark satirical take on motherhood and revenge, blending black comedy with genuine horror. Ruth moves through the city like a ghost, polite on the outside, but cracking inside. Each time the baby's distorted voice urges her on, she finds another target connected to her partner's death in a climbing accident. The killings are awkward and messy, not cinematic, the kind that feel like they could actually happen, and every scene leaves you wondering if she's driven by grief or something far more supernatural. What makes Prevenge disturbing is how calm it feels. Ruth shops for groceries, chats with strangers, and then calmly commits murder moments later. The film never confirms if the baby is truly talking or if Ruth's mind is collapsing under loneliness and guilt. As the story nears its end, Ruth tracks down the final man responsible for her partner's death. Her baby's voice grows louder, mocking her hesitation. When she finally gives birth, there's only silence. She looks at her child and realizes the voice is gone, or maybe it never existed at all. Prevenge leaves you unsettled because it blurs the line between nurture and destruction. It's both a character study and a nightmare about how grief can twist even the most natural instincts into something monstrous. Raven's Hollow. Directed by Christopher Hatton and released in 2022, Raven's Hollow is a gothic horror mystery that imagines a lost chapter from the early life of Edgar Allan Poe. The story begins in 1830 when Poe is still a cadet at West Point. During a routine patrol in upstate New York, he and 4 fellow cadets stumble upon a dying man impaled on a wooden frame. His final word, whispered through blood, is Raven. The group follows that clue to a nearby settlement cut off from the world. Raven's Hollow looks ordinary at first. A few cottages, smoke from chimneys, people who don't ask questions. But the longer they stay, the stranger everything feels. The villagers watch them closely. They avoid talking about the man's death. And at night, something scratches at the walls. Poe's curiosity keeps him there. He interviews the locals, studies strange symbols, and learns about a dark presence that has been haunting the village for generations. The creature, half myth and half ghost, demands blood to protect the town from greater ruin. The tension builds through atmosphere, flickering candlelight, creaking doors, and quiet dread instead of jump scares. By the final act, Poe discovers the truth. The Raven is real, and the villagers have been feeding it victims to survive. He barely escapes alive. The film closes with Poe staring into the mist, shaken and fascinated. You can almost see the birth of the writer he'll become, already haunted by what he's seen. And that brings us to the end of this breakdown. Out of all these titles, Terrified is the one to start off with if you want a pure jolt of supernatural dread. But if you're looking for something stranger and more intimate, Moloch and Raven's Hollow show how folklore and atmosphere can be scarier than any monster on screen. If you enjoyed the video, give the video a like, drop your favorite Shudder horror film in the comments, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The next part goes even deeper into the platform's most unsettling releases, and trust me, they only get darker from here.